Kia hiwara, kia hiwara. Mai I te whenua mo te pōhue, ka ai ki te hau ki te rerenga wairua. Mātai atu ki te taha o ngā tangata katoa. Nau mai haere mai e ngā hoia, i ngā rangatira mā, mo te kaupapa Hauora, o te iwi katoa. Māranga e hoa mā, whānau, hara mai te toki, haumi e hui e,
Hiki e.
tūtawa mai I runga, tūtawa mai I raro, tūtawa mai I roto, tūtawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa, haumi e hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā koutou katoa, my name is Miriana Pepere. He ria hau no Waitaha Tapuika me Ngāti Ranginui. I am the Māori Health Promotion Strategist here at Health Promotion Forum of New Zealand. On behalf of Health Promotion Forum, we'd like to warmly invite you and thank you for joining us today, taking time out of your day to be with us for the next hour and a half. So we welcome you. Also, I'd like to give thanks to the Health Promotion team who has joined us as well. Thank you for joining us, team. Good to have you here. And yeah, we hope we have a good session for today. So just for the layer of the of today's webishop, so the kaupapa is health promotion and the pandemic. So we have three speakers today, including myself, Dr. Viliami Puluka and Sione Tuitahi. Our first speaker will be Viliami, and he'll be discussing the pandemic in relation to the medical approach. And the next speaker will be myself. And I'm going to take us back to the foundations of health promotion, also with a Māori perspective as well. And then lastly, we have the very esteemed Sione, who will discuss the pandemic in relation to human rights and planetary health approaches. Just before we get into it today, whānau, just a little reminder to keep ourselves on mute. We are having a session where we're going to encourage you to unmute, possibly say hello, introduce yourself, and share comments or questions. If you do have a question as we're going, please feel free to chuck it in the chat and we'll get back to that when we can. Also look out for links in the chat. So, so you're welcome to follow us on all our social media platforms. And again, just to let you know that the session will be recorded. So anything that you need to know, whānau, chuck it in the chat. Is there anything else that I've missed out, Emma?
Photo?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. At some point, we're going to get a family photo, and Emma will let us know when we're going to do that. Ka pai. Okay, so health promotion and the pandemic. So our first speaker today is Dr. Viliami Puluka. He has recently returned from the motherland of Tonga. We acknowledge the passing of his brother, of Viliami's brother, and we wish him a safe journey home back to his ancestors. Viliami is also working with the University of Otago around Pacific Health. So if you'd like to know more about that, then drop us a message in the chat. Tēnā koe, Viliami.
Thank you very much, Mariana, and welcome to all of you this morning. It's a great pleasure to share this platform with you and to have some bit of talanoa. And as Mariana has introduced, we thought very hard about the topic to share the talanoa with you this morning. And you know, and the pandemic, even though we are still in the middle of it, for some reason, I think all of us are getting tired of listening and talking about pandemic. But nevertheless, it's still a very important issue. And I think especially there are so many good lessons to learn from the pandemic. And so I as Milana introduced, I have a medical background, used to practice as a medical doctor. So I tend to, but also train as a public health. And I'm very much interested in the intersection between health, public health, clinical health, and public health. And today I'm very excited and asked that we spend some time just thinking about and talking about what has it mean to all of us as we go through the pandemic? But of course, with the background of health promotion, how health promotion has helped us to go through, and a lesson learned for as we are moving forward. And this is actually what all of us here in health promotion are hoping to happen. And I'm sure every single one of you, this is our ideal, is to have healthy people in healthy places on a healthy planet. And I think this is very, very important as we now realize that even though we are in this new epoch of Anthropocene, where human domination is really wrecking the planet, but we realize that actually all of us, our desire for ourselves, for our whānau, for our community, is for us to have our own health to be healthy. But in order to do that, we have got to have healthy places, healthy community, healthy churches, healthy school. And in order for that to happen, we must take care of our one home, common home, the planet Earth. COVID-19, of course, all of us suddenly, and with not much preparation, we're faced with a force that really was beyond our control. And I think that is the real crux of the matter here, because it happened so suddenly and we were so unprepared. And not only that, but it happens as a pandemic. As all of you might be aware, there are at least 3 different stages of any infection that happen. One is when there is an infection happen and it gets more than the usual number of people get infected in then one particular location, then we refer to it as epidemic, meaning it's beyond what we expect to happen. But before it becomes epidemic, a lot of diseases are already here with us, and we refer to them as endemic. An example will be the common flu that we have seasonally every year. That is endemic. I mean, it's always with us. And the advantage of that happening because we are familiar with it and we're not so scared of it anymore. We know how to handle it. But pandemic is not only that it comes as sharing with the whole world. It's something so new, a virus that is nobody ever heard before, doesn't know how to handle that. So we didn't know the nature of the virus. We didn't even know where did it come from and how it will affect all of us. But it surely did, and it still does, affecting all of us globally. And not only that, but it's being an infectious disease, it spreads so easily. And of course, by nature, virus to adapt to its own environment and evolved. And it's coming with different variants. And as you know, we started off with Delta, and then we go to Omicron, and then we had Delta Cron, and then all the different variety, and we named them after the countries, and then we changed from that and named it after the Greek alphabet. We had the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta, and all the different variation, Delta 1, 2, 3, Omicron 1, 2, 3, and all that. So that is the nature of the organism itself. And that contributes to the anxiety, and that contributes to the issue when we were trying to deal with something that so suddenly, without warning, was upon us. We didn't know how to handle it. And our best weapon that we usually deal with in an epidemic like this is vaccine. But we didn't have any vaccine then. And then the next thing that we're thinking about, medically speaking, is to have some drugs, some treatment. When it happened, we didn't have that either. So what we had though, and it is always with us is public health and health promotion measures. And that saves us. And it's something seems so simple, you know, washing your hands, keeping your distance, cough to your elbow, don't spread your virus. You share everything else, but not the organism. And in order to be able to practice those very simple measures, it requires a very high level of trust and a caring attitude. And this is where health promotion comes in. This is public health promotion daily bread, that we have to trust people, we have to work with people, and we have to care for people. And it's also a commitment to ourselves. When you take care of yourself, you are taking care. That's your contribution to the rest of your whānau. When you are well, you are helping the health system so that it won't be overwhelmed by a lot of people going there. And so those are public health promotion measures. Those are the only tool, those are the only ammunition we have always had that. But then we realized, because we have not practicing it too much, and we sort of get excited about medicine, treatment, smart doctors, fancy hospital and equipment, that when it comes to the pandemic, when COVID-19 hit, we didn't have any clinical, it doesn't matter how smart doctors are and how well equipped our hospital, they could not handle this little virus. But each of us were asked to practice those health promotion and those public health measures. Wash your hands, be kind to each other, keep your distance, and so forth. So that was the saving grace for all of us then. I just want to remind us, this is a little summary of what's happening here in New Zealand, and this is the record from last week. And I circle here pandemic, just for us to remember that we are still in the middle of the pandemic. It's not over yet. So there are still new cases, up to 2,000 cases. This is New Zealand now. And out of that 185, almost 200 are still in various hospitals here in New Zealand, and 2 in ICU, and 1 death. And when you get to the ICU, the next stage is very critical, and often we get to pass. And so I think that a lot of us are very happy loosening up the restriction, and we're very happy we can travel, our borders are open. But I think, Fred Rogers is reminding us that often when you think you are at the end of something, you are at the beginning of something else. So I just want to encourage all of us to remain vigilant and to continue to practice those public health and health promotion measures, even if we have drugs now, and even if our immunization rate is very high. So what is happening now? We are moving away from being it's still a pandemic, but moving away from being an epidemic to the state of endemic, meaning that we have to learn to live with COVID-19. And I think it's going to be like how each year we are going to deal with the flu, and there's immunization for the flu each year as we go. And I think it's most likely, and many people predict, that COVID-19 is here to stay. But it will change from being an epidemic, and we will not be as scared of it. We learn more and we know how to deal with it. So, and interesting, because now we have low number of cases because high vaccination rate, and of course we now have a drug, antiviral drugs is available. When we get to that that level of comfort. Still very, very important that the state do not control, do not dictate, and do not tell us. You know, the state is allowing us, our movement is free. The traffic light system is no longer in use now. Our borders are opening up. So, but when it was still a very serious problem, the state control and dictate what we need to do. Now, what is happening, we are really, really depending on our personal responsibility and us individuals, especially health promoters. This is where we continue to advocate, to empower, and to mediate for our community and people that we're working with, because now the burden is squarely on our personal, individual and community, and this is our responsibility. And you know, health promotion is, you know, we're talking about personal behavior, and as we have just talking about. And we're talking about enabling and increasing the control over and to improve your own health, the health of your whānau, the health of your community. And we're talking about health promotion, all these aspects, spirituality, physical, mental health, and social. And we're talking about all the different determinants. And as you know, economic, social, cultural, environmental, those are, and Ottawa Charter, of course, there's the Bible of health promotion, very important. But I just want you to also look at this, the individual and community. Yes, when we're talking about health promotion, we're talking about the biology, the disease, the personal, your own body, the genetics, your genealogy, your personal behavior and the environment. But then some of the action that health promotion has been doing and supporting together with public health is try to empower and enable the individual, the whānau, the people, the Hauora approach. This is really health promotion approach, and advocate and mediate. And very importantly for sustainability, we have to put all these things in a policy. We have to advocate for legislation so that it will help the thing that we are trying to promote. As you know, we as human person, sometimes we need both the carrot and the stick. And when we have legislation, we have laws, it helps really us to keep our action in check. I put that picture here of talking about the disease, and I see, promotion, when we talk about promotion, it really means to begin where you are, whatever your state of health now. You can be diabetic and still well. And you can be a terminal case of cancer and still well. And you're promoting is looking and moving forward. And at the same time, of course, prevention is really trying to not to get sick again. As you know, and as we see in the COVID-19, there are a lot of people who are getting second and maybe third infection. And some of the lessons learned that it's very, very important from my perspective as a health promotion person, and I think COVID-19, I refer to it as some of the collateral benefits of COVID-19. It reminded us that we have to look at our health system. I think some aspect of our current health system is not fit for its purpose, especially when it comes to the diversity of our experiences, our cultures, and our ethnicity. I think there is need to pay more attention to that. Our health system needs to pay more attention to that, and less just depending on science and all, but increasingly we should look at the humanity, the human aspect of things. So public health continues to appear to be a poor cushion of medicine, and of course we need the medicine to be good. When we need medical care, we want our doctors to be sharp. We want the best medicine, but at the same time, most of our lives, the measures that is appropriate and to look after us is mostly our public health measures and health promotion. And the other thing that I think is a big lesson from COVID-19 is the important role of communication and information. And it also emphasizes the trust element, the human aspect that we have to trust. A lot of issue that arises when there are a lot of misinformation and of course the information overload. But then another issue became very clear is the issue of the digital divide. Now, our communication has to be done digitally. And it became obvious through COVID that some people, WHO has recognized this as one of the determinants of health. The information, the communication, the digital divide is a big issue now. So that's also some of the lesson learned I think we learned from going through this pandemic. But we can overcome this pandemic. But we must work together. And this is working together with other countries as well. You know, pandemic meaning it doesn't matter how well you're doing here locally in our own country, because pandemic means it's worldwide. As long as there is virus anywhere, this virus can still get here. So we must work together, and work together here. It's not just locally here, but also with other countries. Leadership, we find, is very, very important. Leadership has to be done with people in mind. And, you know, science and faith on people, science and humanity must be respected together. And we, of course, our focus when there is epidemic and pandemic is to reduce the impact on the vulnerable group. And that could be Māori, Pacific, elder, people homeless, handicapped, or whatever the situation. But this is something that unless we reach and look after those people, we are not going to overcome this. And of course, at the same time, we have to the determinants of health. And I think we must be realistic and expect there will be another one coming on the way. And I think this is really my last slide here, and I just want to encourage all of us as health promotion practitioners that we should continue to advocate, to continue to empower and enable people. We should continue to on a national level, but as this is a global issue, we must work together with everyone else in the world. And you know, there are multiple crises we are facing: climate change, economic, political unrest, COVID, and other emerging diseases. And we must not just focus on one and neglect the others, but that we have a priority to put in place. And health promotion, hopefully, and in our health promotion work, we have to advocate, but also look at the priority. The other thing is it's important, of course, the resources that's available. There are so many resources available, but are they reaching the right people? Are we connecting the needs and the resources? And I think this is another very big function for all of us, the health promotion people in public health. And of course, I think we shouldn't let our painful experience with this pandemic to go to waste, but we must share the lesson learned from all those lived experiences. And we must continue to look and develop a system that is resilient as we're moving forward, especially looking at our healthcare and look at our communities and support our communities when they are implementing those strategies. And I think it's also very, very important, and we support this in our health promotion forum. We must continue at all times to look for evidence to inform the planning. And that might mean doing research and to share all those knowledge in publication and information to inform best practice. Again, this is what we are looking for. We're aiming to have healthy people in healthy places on healthy planet. But the way we ourselves and our colleague and the human, us men and women, we are part of the problem, and we should also be part of the solution. And somebody said here that in time like this, the thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. And this is really just talking about encouraging us to share and care for each other. Cloud is also a sign of something is blocking out the light and life. But if you become somebody to shine the light, to show the way, to lift somebody up. And I think this is the whole purpose, especially from a health promotion perspective, during this time of crisis. Malo bito.
Tēnā koe, Viliami. Thank you for that. Thank you for reinforcing to us the real life impact that the pandemic has. I think for a lot of us who don't live in Auckland, including myself, we forget because it's not at the forefront. So I thank you for reminding me and reminding us that it's important to keep it at the forefront. I'm going to ask you to chuck yourself on mute and stop your share, and I will go on to the next presentation.
Yes, Mariana Tepere is one of our health promotion strategists. Is a young up-and-coming practitioner and a scholar. She's the lead tutor of our flagship course on Certificate of Achievement in Health Promotion. And so, Mariana, thank you very much for sharing your talk, and I know that you are the one who is carrying the torch for us as health promotion, teaching the future health promoters, but also as you have introduced yourself before, you're looking after the Māori portfolio. And Mariana is going to talk about health promotion in general, but also focus on the Māori perspective. Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you, Viliami. I wasn't expecting you to do that, but thank you. Just real quickly, can you see that, Sione? Thumbs up if you can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide? Kapai. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so following on from Viliami, we learned about the medical impact. So I'm going to go into firstly the foundations of health promotion, just to bring us back so that we are all on the same page. I'm just going to ask Viliami to mute Viliami. Thank you. Excuse me. Just if you already know the stuff, and I'm pretty sure most of you are experts in the room, we're just going to come back to ground zero of health promotion, and then we're going to come back into the Aotearoa perspective. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to 1986 when Mariana was 2 years old, and the first International Conference of Health Promotion was hosted by the World Health Organization in Canada. So this conference was a global response to the expectation of a new public health movement around the world. So a whole bunch of experts from around the world were really concerned with the state of the health of everyone. So they got together to create some sort of plan or strategy to move ahead. This particular conference was built on progress following previous discussions, and those discussions included arguments that cancers, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory illnesses, and things like road accidents weren't preventable by the medical approach. So they were pushing for this biomedical concept to replace the medical approach and like deem the health field type concept. At the conference, it also identified actions that would achieve the objectives of the health for all by the year 2000. So we're 22 years past that. Don't know if that happened, but that was the goal, and that was something that was launched a little bit earlier in 1981. So it's a very much a global, and we are talking about global a lot today, global approach to health or Hauora or well-being for everyone. So we're going to talk about the different layers and what that looks like for health promotion in Aotearoa as well. So from that big hui came this thing called the Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion, and they created this tohu or the symbol to symbolize those actions. So this is the Ottawa Charter, which was born from the conference, and this highlights the actions for people to achieve health for themselves and the community. So there are 5 action strands and 3 strategies. So you would have heard Viliami mention the 3 strategies or roles of a health promoter, which are to enable, to mediate, and to advocate. And the 5 action strands. So these are the things that you should do. These are the doing things that all people and everyone can do. And they are strengthening community action, developing personal skills, creating supportive environments, reorienting health services, and building healthy public policy. So if you didn't know, we do have a level 4 certificate that we do. We are touching very quickly on some of the things that we do in that course. If you are interested, please get in touch with us and we can put you on or give you information about our intakes, which start again next year. We have finished taking enrollments for this year, but you can enroll for next year as well. And this is some of the stuff that we do in the course, the very, very basics and foundations of health promotion. So yep, you've got your 3 strategies: enable, mediate, advocate. We've all, most of us have probably all had to do that, all had to advocate for something, to mediate for something, and to enable others. And then the 5 action strands as well. Okay, so we're going to stay here with the foundation stuff, and we're going to talk about health promotion as this thing, this field, this discipline. Because when you hear health promotion, most of us think, oh yeah, promotions, marketing, recruitment, advertising, handing out flyers, pushing a campaign, telling people about different programs that are happening. And it is that, but it is a whole lot more than that as well. But we'll stay at the beginnings first. So the World Health Organization, 1986, they came up with this definition. So the process of health promotion is enabling people to increase control over their health and to improve their health. The key word is enabling and control. Health promotion is to reach a state of overall well-being. To reach a state of overall well-being, people must be able to identify and realize their aspirations, satisfy their needs, and change or cope with the environment. Now that all sounds pretty straightforward, but when you break it down and you really look at, okay, can we even do that today? It's a little bit trickier. So do I have control over my health? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Am I able to realize my aspirations? As a Māori woman, sometimes I would say sometimes no. Can we change or cope with our environment in today's climate? Housing crisis, food insecurity, prices skyrocketing of everything, climate change. Can we still do that? So that's very, very debatable. So if we look at health promotion, are we doing that successfully? Or are we giving that to others or working for that for others successfully? So that's what health promotion is. It's achieving those things. The term itself was coined in 1945 by Henry E. Sigarist, who was a medical historian, and he was a champion for universal healthcare from Switzerland. So that was in the 1940s. Health promotion is very much an intersectoral approach. So it's not just a whole bunch of health experts. Health promotion is everyone. So it's advocacy, it's legislation, it's public and private sectors, it's politics, it's government departments, it's education. As a health promoter, you might be involved in a project or a hui or a case where there'll be a whole lot of stakeholders from different sectors and working for the one cause. So that is a part of health promotion as well. Health promotion is not solely in the health sector. Within a New Zealand context, health promotion is limited in terms of general health promotion because it isn't located in a Māori worldview, such as the Ottawa Charter. So other tools need to be considered and used as well alongside models like the Ottawa Charter. So again, very quick breakdown of health promotion. I do invite you to join out to do further studies on this as well. So Māori health promotion, what is that? Miriana, what is Māori health promotion then? So you've got generic Māori generic health promotion and the Māori worldview, and where they meet, that is where Māori health promotion is found, and it takes the strength from both of those approaches. Māori health promotion is a Māori driven process, obviously, so it should be Māori driving it. If it's not Māori driving it, then it's not Māori health promotion. Māori health promotion enables Māori to increase control over the determinants of health and strengthen their identity as Māori. So it's Māori doing it for Māori. And thereby improving their health and position in society. Māori health promotion is also the balance between spiritual, mental, social, and physical dimensions. So things like whakapapa or genealogy, te taiao, the environment. So the environment is a huge part of a Māori person's well-being and health. The atua, the deities or the gods, and also tikanga. So it's not just your daily things, it's also those supernatural philosophies that make up a person's health as well. And it's finding the balance between those. So, you know, when you're working in a prison, is that a conducive space for having a connection with the atua? That's, you know, that's debatable. So it's finding the balance for those types of things. That was a really extreme example, but that is an example. Yeah, especially when most of them are Māori who are in the prisons anyway. And also, what is Māori health promotion? It is self-determined, and it's a whānau collective approach. It's not for me to determine what someone's what they want to aspire. They determine that themselves, and they with their whānau work to achieve that. I am there as a health promoter to support and enable them, whether I'm Māori or non-Māori. So health promotion, Māori health promotion, two different things working for the same thing, but two different approaches. So in Aotearoa, I'm going to bring it back to a few models now. So we've got this field of health promotion in Aotearoa. There are three key models. There are lots of models, but we're going to quickly recognize three very key ones in Aotearoa that can help us with our practice. So we've got the Ottawa Charter that I spoke about, and that Viliame spoke about too, which is like the birthplace of health promotion as a field. And that is very much a global and international perspective. It's created with it was created by the minds of people all over the world, including Aotearoa. Then we go to Te Pai Mahutonga, which is a Māori perspective. Not anywhere else, it is a Māori perspective, and that was created within the Māori worldview, and that is a health promotion model to work with Māori, for Māori. And then another model that we should, as health promoters in Aotearoa, we should really be familiar with all three of them. We have Te Tiriti o Waitangi as the Aotearoa perspective, and that acknowledges the Crown and Hapu agreement and relationship. Again, if you haven't looked at Two Hands, Treaty Understanding of Hauora and Aotearoa, New Zealand, that is a very good document to look at, and that uses Te Tiriti, well, I shouldn't say uses, that frames Te Tiriti o Waitangi as a model for health promotion, and that is from a purely Aotearoa perspective, because we, the Ottawa Charter looks at the global view. In Aotearoa, we have our own rarus going on here, and our own relationships and needs. So Te Tiriti works around the Aotearoa perspective, and then for Māori, we have Te Pai Mahutonga, which is a distinctly Māori perspective and worldview. So these are the three key models that as health promoters we should be familiar with in Aotearoa, with the different layers and perspectives. So what I want to do now is bring us back to 2020. Now that we've refreshed our brains with this stuff around health promotion, and I just want to, as you can see, there's some key things that happened that that everyone experienced, but distinctly for Māori, these ones. And so those things were, so travel bans and social restrictions. So everyone had to deal with that come March 2020. So that meant families were disconnected from each other. Tikanga had to evolve as a result of the lockdown. So that meant that tangihanga changed, although people tried to hold it off and hopefully wait till lockdown was finished. But that was very much a disrupted process. I remember being back home. I went, because I was living in Auckland at the time, but I went straight back home to Te Puke once I knew that everything was getting locked up and I wanted to be close to my whānau. And I say this now, I didn't say it at the time. So I had actually lost my mum to lung cancer about 4 weeks before the lockdown occurred. And, straight after the tangi, lockdown wasn't even registering on my mind. And that was a really hard, traumatic, emotional time for our family. And then 2 weeks later, my mum's sister passed away at the start of March, the very, very start of March. So that was just dealing with that alone was hard enough. And then when the lockdown came, we were a little bit grateful that we were able to grateful that we were able to be next to our mum during that really, really hard grieving time. And then when lockdown happened, we were like, oh my gosh, imagine what these families are going through who can't attend the tangi of their loved ones, their mums, their dads, their sisters. So that was really, I felt really bad for the whānau who couldn't do that. So that was something that I think for all Māori was really hard for us to deal with. We couldn't attend tangi. There were lots of tangi, but none of those could happen properly according to tikanga. So tikanga had to change. Rituals had to change. Couldn't hongi anymore. Couldn't attend with everyone like we had to. So that was a key thing that happened for Māori, the evolution of tikanga. Also, what was significant that happened in Māori communities was the uptake of care packages. Straight away, everyone jumped into, okay, we got some pretty poor hara whānau that are going to struggle, everyone's getting not laid off, but no one's being able to work. So it's going to be real hard. So a lot of Māori organizations and even just people got together and did care packages. A lot of PSGEs did that as well. If you don't know what a PSG is, it's the entity that looks after the funds from the treaty settlements. And I thought that was really, really good. But then I realized some people, if they weren't registered with their iwi, they weren't eligible for a care pack. And I was like, well, since, that you have to ask the question, since when did a registration mean that I was Waitaha? I've always been Waitaha, whether I sign your paper or not. So that's something to think about for our Māori whānau. Iwi checkpoints happened. Some of them were welcome, some of them were not. I was involved in our iwi checkpoint, and we experienced backlash, but the key goal was protecting our whānau and protecting mainly our elderly, who were very, very susceptible. Kohanga reo closed, but the other things that happened was online innovations happened. People started creating online businesses, running webinars, doing e-classes. So the digital space did allow for Māori to still be connected and to still be, to still be able to create income somehow or be connected. So those things happened, but Zoom took off. Zoe's, the word Zoe is a Māori online hui via Zoom, but also another one, couldn't attend tangi, but you could watch on Facebook Lives, which was a new thing that I've never seen before, and even that was a huge discussion point. So all these things prompted really big kōrero amongst the Māori communities, like, is it appropriate to have a camera on showing someone's tūpāpaku or the dead body or the corpse? I would say no. I would say that's entirely inappropriate, but people were moving however they best felt like they needed to. So those were the different ways that Māori, the key ones anyways, that Māori responded to the pandemic. Now, if we look at the models that we just talked about, so if we look at the Ottawa Charter, one of the action strands is strengthen community action. So Māori definitely did that. Māori communities mobilized quickly. We did, we worked best with the police or whoever we could as quick as we can. And even when, certain people didn't like it or disagreed with some of those things like the iwi checkpoints, we did it anyway, because the goal was protect the whānau and protect the health of whoever needs it, mainly the elderly. When we look at te tiriti, we know that some Māori leaders were excluded from the development of plans and strategies by the government, because we also know that Māori are 7 times likely to be hospitalised from COVID. So was that in line with Te Tiriti o Waitangi articles? Probably not. Was that model looked at? Probably not. So we can use these models to really look at what we can use it to look back and say, okay, what went well, what didn't, and then look forward, what would we change? And then if we look at Te Pai Mahutonga, looking back, very little consideration of the impact of spiritual and whakapapa disconnection was taken, when those borders were announced and those lockdowns and those stay home. So, I'm not here to say that what happened was right or wrong, but there was definitely an impact of a spiritual and whakapapa disconnection. So these models should be used to plan better ahead and not just to look back at what was right and what was wrong. So they can be used as effective tools for both of those things. And I think it's important that we do that and that we use them for that purpose. So some future Māori approaches. This is what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about, okay, looking ahead, especially if round 3 of pandemic happens, what are some future approaches that Māori can have to health and emergencies? So I've got up there, Māori should be given priority or position to lead and develop strategies to responses. So if you're one of those people who works in a space where you're creating these responses, get your Māori people involved, and make sure they're the right ones. There should be training and development for Māori staff and whānau to build their skill and capacity, especially among those at the front line. Most of the people who did all the work, volunteers / just whānau who wanted to help out. So give them some support and training and development as well, because they're always going to be the one at the front line. Usually no pay, usually will just turn up. Usually if you ask them, or a particular cousin or auntie asks them, they're there, but they should be supported further as well. Another future approach for Māori, focused and coordinated hapu or iwi-led approaches to dealing with police, civil defence, local authorities, government agencies, and community organisations, because those are the people that should be coming together to help everyone. But for Māori, if we have strong relationships with those groups, it means the plan can be put into place quicker and can be a better plan for our people. And making sure that the focus is on health gains and whānau ora-centered approaches. And my last one, and hear me out about this one, whānau, hear me out. You might roll your eyes at this one, but I'm going to say it. Coordinated hapu or iwi approaches to local politics. So that's working with council and community boards and supporting people who are running for them. You know, we just came off local elections, and we all know the turnout was terrible. There was for Māori, I mean, Māori wards are a great thing, but they could be better for us here in Tauranga, Western Bay of Plenty. I will say that the relationship between Māori and the Crown and the council is a terrible one. It's a terrible. Tauranga doesn't even have a council because they have commissioners. It was that bad. Western Bay of Plenty just went through their elections, and very, very few Māori, if any at all, on the council. So having an iwi approach to a campaign, having a hapu based and supported campaign for Māori candidates is a possible way to get more Māori into key positions, and to also be good at it. So don't just do it because you want to do it, and also be effective in doing it the right way. So training around media, business interests, policy development, strategy, ethics, values, all that. I mean, politics is a pretty shark-infested place anyway, but a whānau / hapu-based approach to a campaign would get a lot more support for those people who are doing it, and it can be a lot more successful and a lot more in line with values and ethics than just the lone soldiers that all over New Zealand, they give it a go and then they don't get anywhere. So the lone soldier or the lone wolf approach doesn't really work. Go for that hapu-based / whānau / collective approach. Nearly finished. So future approaches to health emergencies for those who work with Māori. We need active and responsive to tiriti or waitangi-centered relationships. So that's again the police, so iwi, civil defence. If you're working with those, make sure that those relationships are te tiriti-centered, which means fair and equitable. Workforce development, key workforce development. As practitioners, we must be able to develop and support meaningful relationships with Māori communities. We must be skilled and proficient in building proactive alliances, trust, like what Biliami said, and cooperation at cultural interfaces. We must be able to recognize and challenge racial inequities. And we should be engaged with the health promotion competencies at the very least. And for future global approaches, because remember, it's not just about what's happening in Aotearoa. Something happened in a whole nother country a few months later, I'm not able to go to my karawa's tangi. So we have to pay attention to what's happening globally. So future global approaches could be a focused and coordinated Indigenous peoples approach across countries and across sectors led by Indigenous people. And that could incorporate the rights of Indigenous peoples and the human rights approach also. So that's my kōrero about how Māori dealt with the pandemic and what we can do, what we can all do moving forward. Our final speaker today is Sione Tuitahi. He has recently come home from his travels in Europe, where he is working to be a voice for Indigenous people amongst the ranks of UNICEF. He is also the recently elected president for IUHPE, the International Union for Health Promotion and Education. He is a published poet, and he is a very proud, loving koro. So tēnā koe, Sione.
Tēnā koe, Mirana. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here, and my respect to our participants in the house, and Williami and Mirana. An excellent job that you have done, looking very closely at COVID-19, offering tools and activities that we can do, how to address COVID-19. It is still with us, as Williami said, but also prepare us if other things will come around. And my short addition to today's talanoa and kōrero is about broadening our understanding of the context where COVID-19 is located. And I will go up to the top level, to the planetary level, and provide a perspective from there. And when I say planetary level, it will be a combination of both Indigenous and Western science perspectives. There are a couple of things that I'd like to touch on before I talk. One is what Mirana mentioned earlier about the beginning of health promotion as a formal academic discipline or a field of health practice. As we know it, it started from Europe. However, I would like to make it very clear that health promotion as a principle, as a concept, as a philosophy, as a practice is actually present in all cultures. And what Mirana also articulated, Te Tiriti, of course, among other things, represents a very deep reservoir of Indigenous knowledge system here in Aotearoa, like many other Indigenous cultures. And within that, there is health promotion knowledge and practices. And we are now reaching a stage where we see other knowledge systems emerging to co-address the global challenges that we are facing. And so there is room, and it is valid for us to look at other knowledge systems. And I think what Priya was talking about, that's part of what I'm talking about, that we need to acknowledge and look across the world and learn from other cultures, other knowledge systems. And I will touch on that a bit more. I think that's enough for now. Let me talk about what I'm supposed to be briefly talking about. One of the lessons that we have learned from COVID-19 is that we are a one interrelated, interconnected system. In brief, we are a one planet. We are a one people with all its diversity, but we know we all come from the same gene pool, and then we migrate and all of that. And it's about our one well-being as a one human family. The world is but one country, humanity, its citizens, full stop. And the story that is important today, or more important today, is the story of the well-being of our human family and the well-being of our one common home, planet Earth. In many parts of the world, they live as if we have 3 or 4 planets in a northern hemisphere, in the global north. But the reality is, we only have one planet. Here in New Zealand, we live as if we have close to 3 planets. But we need to really scale down, the way we live, our lifestyle, and make sure that we live within the ability of our one home to sustain itself and to sustain us. And as our Prime Minister said, as long as there's COVID anywhere, there is COVID everywhere. Viriami touched on that. So we should not lower our health promotion defense. As health promoters, we should continue to promote, to enable, to advocate, and to do all those things that Mariana and Viriami talk about. And so what is planetary health? It's about the human systems that we have created. And by human systems, I refer to our political system, our economic system, our social system, our cultural systems. As you can see, where we are now, the human systems that we have built are not able to address fairly, equitably, and adequately the global challenges that we face today. A major part of those systems is the natural system, the water system, the soil, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and all of that that we need to use in order to live. Those two things should work together in a balanced, harmonious, sustainable way. The systems that we create and the natural systems that we found when we came into the scene, the Anthropocene that Viriami talked about, which was identified by scientists some 70 years ago. They marked that as in the 1950s. That's the beginning of the age of the Anthropocene. Not because we humans are important, but because we humans are doing a lot of damage to ourselves, to each other, and our environment. So there's a definition of planetary health with the Rockefeller Lancet Commission. You can find it in the Public Health Lancet editions of 2015, but also it is combined in our definition as the Health Promotion Forum and also as the International Union for Health Promotion and Education in our twin legacy statements that we evolved from the World Conference that we co-hosted in Rotorua 2019. The other thing that COVID-19 has taught us or reminded us that it is not just one global challenge. It is not just pandemic itself. It's not just COVID-19. It's actually a convergence. It's the coming together of a number of global challenges. The environmental crisis that I briefly mentioned, the economic crisis that we are currently facing, the geopolitical crisis. We look at Ukraine as the main flashpoint in the world today, but not the only one. As you know, Ukraine is the battleground, but it's actually a war of many states and nations. As you have had the news from the other day, arms are brought in from various parts of the world, and more than one few countries are involved with that war. And so from a health perspective, you can't help but to feel not good about the fact that trillions of dollars of our resources are being poured into a bottomless pit of war and conflict. The fifth crisis is not often identified, but I'd like to put that forward for discussion. It's actually a moral, spiritual crisis. within the human family. And as you know, all these things are human-induced, caused by us, the anthropos, the damage to the environment, the damage to the economy because of the economic systems that we put in place. We count money and we say that's well-being, when actually we should look at the circular economy, the indigenous way of managing our resources. We should look at models like the donut economies and so on and so forth. Stop the war, geopolitical crisis, and essentially it is a moral, ethical crisis that we are facing. We have lost the meaning of what life is all about. And COVID is essentially a consequence of our disrupting the natural system, we human beings. So that's in a summary what is happening to us. One human family, one planet, not two or more. And so what can we do about these things? There is the human rights approach that Mirana talked about. 1948, the UN Declaration. We can start from there. And then, of course, 2007, the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. There are other such declarations, the CEDAW for the rights of women, the rights of children, for example. And Mariana touched on the Te Tiriti Waitangi. These are human rights-based global, regional, and national statements, instruments that we need to refer to when we try to deal with COVID-19 and the other global challenges that I mentioned before. And the question is why? Well, it's because we have a common right as humans to, right to health and other things. And if we are not careful, we might continue to exploit others, the minorities, the have-nots, by those who have both the resources and the power. So always configure the human rights approach in our addressing of these ongoing global challenges. At a conceptual planetary level, we should reconceptualize our reality. And what I mean by that, our identity is defined either by tribe, local identity, your town, your village, or your nation. My country, my tribe, my race. Some people put on color. Color is another definition. But the reality of the world today is that, as I said before, we are a planetary home, and we need to elevate our consciousness to that world consciousness of one human family system. Otherwise, we will continue to fight each other in the same way. If you imagine the systems in our body, the food system, digestive system, the blood system, respiratory systems, if they begin to fight each other, the human body, the human being will not exist. So today, like the human body, we have all come together. We know each other. That has been the reality from day one. But now, through science, through education, technology, transport, education, and communication, we now know that we are a one human family, and we should think like one and work like one. So we need to elevate our consciousness to that level. As Einstein says, we cannot solve the problem at the level where it was created. We need to elevate our thinking to a level where we can find a solution. And that's what I mean by we need to reconceptualize our reality, and we need to elevate our consciousness. We need to look at the indigenous systems that I talked about before, bring in systems thinking to look at the whole rather than considering only the part, only the ones that I know, only the ones that I love. We need to expand our code of ethics to not just love your fellow countrymen, but also love your fellow human beings. I'll talk more about ethics and values later. Expand our horizon, and I think Miriami and Mariana have talked about that. To understand well-being as it's holistic. It's about our material and our spiritual prosperity. It's not one-sided. We are in this mess because we think material well-being only, and we have learned a very, very hard lesson. We learned hard way that we need to include our ecological well-being and our spiritual well-being. On that point, I would like to add that the Health Promotion Forum, had the bounty and a huge responsibility to work really hard with colleagues at the World Health Organization and input into the latest charter of the series that Mariana mentioned, and Miriam, of course, mentioned earlier, the Ottawa Charter, 1986. And I'm talking about the Geneva Charter for Wellbeing that came out last December. We input into that, and you can see in the charter, ecological well-being, the health of the planet is mentioned, and also spiritual well-being. Also, in the charter, you can see a call to center Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous leadership. And so there's an opportunity there for us to work together across the world, while at the same time we focus on our nation and we learn from other knowledge systems. I also would like to challenge us to learn from faith-based communities and religious traditions across the world. This is a taboo, concept and word, not often, if at all, brought into our public discourse on health, education, and other important topics at the global level, especially when the conversation is in the global north. But at the end of the day, you find it's about how we trust one another, how we love each other, how we are honest with each other, and how we care, share, and be kind to each other. And those fundamental principles, they are bricks and mortars of life. One major source of that is from the faith-based communities and the religious traditions of the world. And in fact, many of the great civilizations of the world were built based on the teachings of these faith-based communities, these religious traditions. And I refer to Christianity, how it has contributed to the building of the Western civilization. Similarly, we see in the Middle East of the pivotal role of Islam. And in Asia, especially India, you see Hinduism and Buddhism in other parts of Southeast Asia. So Western science have brought us this far, but at a big cost to the health of our environment, our one common home, planet Earth, and also the relationship of us fellow human beings. We are so extremely wealth, but the unfairness of the distribution of that has caused abject poverty in many parts of the world. And while we have reached the moon and other parts of the solar system, we still cannot reach each other's heart and work out harmony, love, unity, and peace. And peace is the first prerequisite, the first determinant of health that is stated in the Ottawa Charter. So those are some of the things that you need to think about. And I'm sharing this to challenge your thinking, to think outside the box, to elevate your thinking to a higher level. And in the course of doing that, you need to check your toolkit of your competencies. Mariana talked about the Health Promotion competencies that we are working on. And we will invite you in the near future to participate in that. So, but our current competencies, you need to make sure that you have the knowledge. Today, this is part of enriching our knowledge component, but also to make sure that we have the practical skills. And Mariana touched on a few of that, especially on the grassroots level, Williami too. But what I have just touched on about the ethics, the moral, the code of conduct, how we should do our work with ourselves, with our whānau, with our communities. The third component is equally, if not the most important part. It's how we do our work, our attributes, our values, our ethics, our principles. As they say, they don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. So this is a business of both mind and heart, health promotion, public health, and the broader business of healthcare. We must have those three components: knowledge, practical skills, qualities or attributes, and then a fourth one that William and I added on a few years back. After all those nice things, make sure that you actually walk your talk. So take action. And finally, some references for you. There is the twin legacy statements from the Rotorua Conference, the Global Working Group on Hauora, Planetary Health. It's a group that I co-chair at the IUHPE, inspired, of course, by the Rotorua Conference. There is the Geneva Charter for Wellbeing. Have a look at the link and check the things I mentioned. An address by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, at Columbia University in December 2020, about the state of the planet, where he says that we are on a suicidal pathway. Our planet is broken because we humans are waging war against nature. And if I may dare add to that, we are actually waging war on each other first, and nature is suffering as part of the collateral damage. And finally, there's the IUHPE statement. The IUHPE statement is the latest statement from the IUHPE. It's the legacy statement of the 2022 conference that was held last May in Montreal and online as well. It refers all to the Rotorua Conference, so the spirit and the mission of the Rotorua Conference is carried on by this statement that I work with Indigenous and non-Indigenous colleagues at a conference to be approved and put out to the world. Just published this morning, so we have it hot off the press. So some food for thought, some references for you to look at, and I hope that you have got a sense that it's not just pandemic. It's what some of my colleagues call syndemic, because it's a synchronization of at least 4 or 5 global challenges: environment, economy, geopolitical conflicts, pandemics, and as I added, a fifth one there, it's a moral spiritual crisis within the human family. Here's a poem that I'd like to, let me check the time, that I came to mind September last year, about this time last year, and I talk about where the answer is in order to deal with the pandemic. One of the solutions I suggest is that one of the lasting solutions can come from within you and me, within the wisdom of our mind and the light within our soul and heart. Back to you, Mirana. That's my addition to our wonderful corridor this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sione. We haven't had any questions come through. And thank you, Lavinia, for posting the competencies for us. So just for our audience, if you do have any questions, you can unmute now and ask away, or you can type it up into our chat. If you're too shy, that's okay as well. But we are heading into the last few minutes of our webinar, webishop. Is there anything you wanted to share before we close off, Viliame?
Not really. I just want to, just give the opportunity for any of the participants who would like to ask any question, or otherwise, of course, you have our contact. I'll be more than happy to answer it on offline. But also, I think it's just it will be very helpful for your feedback. Of course, you will be giving us as we are looking into a better way that will fit your needs as we moving forward to the future. Yeah, would appreciate any feedback on that.
Kapai, just real quickly too, we remember we did say we were going to ask for a class photo. So Emma, feel free to end the recording, and then we can go and do a photo. And if there aren't any questions, then we can move into karakia.
Thank you, Mary, and I'll finish the recording.
Oh, awesome. Kia ora, T White Kokiri Hauora.